So shall we start?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining from. Let's get started. But before we start, just to inform everyone that we have the interpretation available. Please go to the interpretation and select the language we feel you prefer. So we have French and English. And yeah, once again, welcome to this session. I'm really very delighted and very happy to be your moderator today for this CSW virtual panel discussion entitled Driving Masculinity and Women's Empowerment Through Positive Masculinity in Francophone West Africa, that have been organized by Batonga Foundation. My names are Shamsi Kazimbaya. I'm a Senior Program Officer with Ekimundo Center for Masculinities and Social Justice. I'm based in Rwanda, in Kigali. I've been in this field of gender equality and masculinities for the last 11, 12 years, supporting different partners around Africa to integrate gender transformative approaches in their projects and programs by intentionally engaging men and boys for gender equality, violence prevention, and also women's empowerment. So as far as West Africa is concerned, on behalf of Ekimundo, I've been supporting the SWED, Sahel Women Empowerment and Demographic Dividend Project since 2018 to integrate gender transformative approaches and promote positive masculinities through the husband school strategy that some of you may know. I'll be sharing more as we dive in the discussions. Welcome again to this session that I believe you will enjoy with our amazing panelists. So allow me to ask our panelists to introduce themselves very quickly, and I will start by Casimir. Please, you have the floor to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Shamsi. I'm Casimir Koli. I'm joining from Senegal, from the rural area of Senegal, where I have been working with Women's Global Education Project for 8 years now. And here we are implementing two programs, the first being Sister School, which provides a comprehensive scholarship for girls from primary to through university. And the second one is Sisters Lead, the one I coordinate. And here we train high school girls on leadership topics so that they can become emerging young leaders. So they can also bring the change they want to see in their own community. So the interventions are completely driven by the girls themselves from the topic they wish to train in to the problem to be solved. So since I ended my studies, I have been working for women organization. So in my community, they call me that you embody positive masculinity. And the girls, they call me Uncle Kaz, affectionately. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Casimir. Over to you, Wense, and welcome, Dominique.
Yeah. Hi, Chamsi. Hi, everyone. My name is Wens. I'm based in Benin, in charge of program quality, partnership, but also I'm in charge of engaging men and boys to our girl programming for Batonga Foundation, both for Benin and Senegal. I'm really happy to be part of this conversation. And we'll be sharing Batonga's cases, impact, how we integrated this approach, but also many other aspects you will be hearing under this discussion. Je voudrais aussi mentionner que pour l'audience francophone, vous avez la possibilité de cliquer en bas et de choisir l'option d'écouter en français cette conversation, puisqu'il y a un soutien de traduction. Thanks so much. Over to you, Chamsi.
Thanks, Wense, and welcome again, Dominique. Over to you for your introduction.
Thank you so much, Shamsi, for this great opportunity My name is Dominic Misono, a priest from Anglican Church of Kenya, and I'm also the founder and president of Institute for Faith and Gender Empowerment, a faith-based organization working with faith actors and community leaders on gender justice and equality. We work on three main programs. One, we call Positive Masculinity, where we are addressing the root causes of gender inequality by engaging men and faith actors in gender justice advocacy, biblical gender equality training, and faith-based movement building. The second program is Women's Health and Safety, where we are supporting survivors of sexual violence through psychosocial counseling, legal assistance, and livelihood programs. And finally, we work on meaningful youth engagement, where we equip youths with knowledge and skills to advocate for sexual and reproductive health while fostering meaningful dialogue with faith actors and policymakers. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Dominic, and so happy to have you with us today. So I'm going to ask also our participants to introduce themselves using the chat box in the Q&A. Please tell us your names, your organizations, where you're joining from, and kindly share with us one favorite thing that you'd like everyone to know about yourself. Maybe the food you like most, the music, anything you like, everyone to know about yourself. And as you're doing that, continue writing the chat box so that we know you better. And now, without further ado, let me invite the ED of Batonga Foundation for her remarks. So please, Kodi, you're welcome.
Thank you, Shamsi, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Very much. My name is Kodu Jau, and I have been the executive director of the Batonga Foundation, and we couldn't be more delighted to welcome you to this important discussion on the role of men and boys in advancing gender equality and women's empowerment as we assess the state of gender equality around the world during these 2 weeks of the Commission on the Status of Women, CSW, and really 30 years after Beijing, where a platform for action to achieve gender equality was drawn, this conversation couldn't be more critical. For too long, gender equality has been seen as a women's issue, between quotes. But true progress requires the active participation of everyone, especially men and boys, which are the other, who are the other half of this humanity, of the world. Today, we will explore how engaging men as allies, as advocates, and partners can help break down the barriers and to challenge harmful norms and to create a more inclusive and equitable world and society for all of us. At the Batonga Foundation, we believe in the power of community-driven change. And through our programs, we not only invest in young women and girls, but we also engage men and boys as champions of gender equality. And by fostering open conversations, challenging deeply rooted stereotypes, and promoting positive masculinity, we create environments where women and girls can thrive. Our distinguished panels from Equimondo, from Women Global, Education Global, and Institute for Faith and Gender Empowerment, and our own Batonga's, our Batonga's own Wenceslas Jokpe, will bring a wealth of experience and insights into this critical conversation that we will be having today. Together, we will discuss strategies, share success stories, and identify opportunities to foster meaningful change at individual level, at household, community, and also at policy level. We look forward to really having an engaging conversation, and we invite you all to be part of this dialogue. Let us get started. Shamsi, I pass you the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kodi, for this great introduction. So indeed, men need gender equality and gender equality need men. So we really need men on board to really being successful and also sustainable in promoting women's empowerment and gender equality. So thanks again to our panelists. And I'm going to ask Wense to ask you, Wense, to kick us off with the first question. Asking you, please, to tell us how at Batonga, the decision to integrate a male engagement component into a traditionally female-focused program come about, and what were the initial challenges you faced? Over to you, Wense. You are muted, Wense. You are muted.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chamsi. At Batonga Foundation, in the hard-to-reach communities where we are implementing our programs, both in Benin and Senegal, we saw that empowering women and girls alone was not enough. After implementing our girl-focused program for, let's say, 5-6 years, our process evaluation in the report showed us that community where local leaders and men were more engaged, we achieved better outcomes for girls and women. In the specific context of Francophone West Africa, where social structures and let's say deeply rooted in traditional gender roles, we saw that sustainable changes required bringing men into the conversation, as you mentioned. And this led us to create a dedicated pillar, let's say, initiative for allyship model we have, and we call men and boys engagement pillar into the conversation. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. This allows us at this time to strategically work with men as allies in shifting norms and fostering a more supportive environment for gender equity and equality. At this time, with the support of program participants and experienced women mentors, local women we have on the programs who have deep knowledge of the communities, the most engaged men were selected as male champion. We call them usually champions, and they are trained and well equipped to actively support programs by promoting positive masculinity. We first piloted this phase only in Benin, as all processes and initiative at Batonga Foundation. And then we use the lesson learned from assessment, process evaluation to scale it into our entire programs within the hundreds of communities we have in both countries, in Benin and Senegal, as I said. You also asked Chamsi, what are the challenges we are facing? At first, I would say there was a kind of hesitation when we had this initiative within the communities. Some people, community leaders, questioned why a program focused on girls and women will now involve men. Is this program against men? So let me say that building trust was really key factor around this discussion, this aspect, to make trust. To clarify, men are not direct target for Batonga, but Batonga relies on them as allies, as Kodu, our ED, said, to achieve more outcomes for girls and women. We had to show them that this was not at all about taking power away from men, but about creating opportunities for everyone Once community members, leaders understood that at this time, gender equality benefits families, households, but also the whole communities, many of them became strongly, and they are advocating now for change, for positive masculinity, as I said. But of course, we still have to do more in this way, I would say. Thanks so much, Chamsi.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Wensi. I think something that you said, which is really very important about engaging or working with men and boys, is building trust. I think you said it very well. And again, I was talking about the experience of Ekimundo working in West Africa. This is always actually the entry point. Once we are able to build trust with men in their different categories, as fathers, as boys, you have the chance actually to have them on board as allies, as we've been saying. And you have realized that actually this is the missing link. And I'm happy to hear from Batonga's experience that actually you realize that actually, even though you've been successful in your programs, but bringing men and boys on board actually makes it even better and more successful and sustainable. So let's hear about, the experience in Senegal now from Casimir to tell us, as we heard about the Batonga's experience, it's obvious that actually once we engage men and boys, you reach even more impact, positive impact. So please tell us about your experience and how including men and boys has enhanced the impact of your programs on women's economic empowerment.
Thank you, Chamsi. To better understand how the inclusion of men and boys has positively impacted our programs in women's economic independence in the Senegalese context, where Women's Global Education Project is really active, especially in the rural area. I would like to emphasize that many girls are unable to complete their education and therefore hinders them from getting a job, hinders them from getting an economic independence. So Women's Global just started with ensuring that girl can get an education, graduate to high school, and either continue their education in a vocational schools or gain employment. And we get at the root cause of women, that the lack of economic independence, and found that education is at the root cause, sorry. So the integration of men and boys in our programs, especially in what we have created, what we have created as the alert and watch committees that I will develop, deeply develop after. This integration has reinforced the respect of women and girls' rights as far as education is concerned. In the local context, where the local mindset and the power of patriarchy sometimes can jeopardize or hinders women's and girls' rights as far as education is concerned. So some going to ask me, what are the alert committees? So, and how do we come up with that? We have created them in 2022, and it is like a community police force to monitor and struggle against any kind of issues that could prevent girls' education. So in our leadership program, we have integrated boys in the leadership program. So, however, there are sensitive issues that when in this program we have integrated the boy, and together with the girls, they go to convene community meetings. But during the community meeting, there were some issues that were reported to them, like a girl who is raped, a girl who is given to marriage very early. So Women's Global said that since those questions was really sensitive and critical, and the girl were not able to deal with them, so we have the initiation of creating this alert committee, where we integrate these boys and the members of the community, the religious leader, we integrated them in these committees so that they can create a kind of supportive environment for women's and girls' education. So they are doing a very, very great work in our community, above all in the rural area. For instance, about the thorny questions of the lack of birth certificates for some children whose father sometimes has denied their paternity. And in Senegal, there is a law which reinforces the situation, because there is this law has exacerbated the prohibition of the paternity suite under a Senegalese law that forbids women to pursue the fathers who denied that. So in our committee, we have two men. There is a great success story that really strikes me. We have two men that every couple, every week, they go to the maternity to inform the woman in newborn whose fathers are unknown, to show them and work with them in the strategies, in the procedures to help those women declare their children. This is so powerful, the work that the women are helping us in the community. And in another allied committee in Tubukuda, this man has also stopped an early marriage of an 11-year-old girl whose studies were jeopardized by the marriage. But since the parents, he wanted just to offer that girl to marriage because the condition of living was not easy. And then those men, they made a kind of mediation with their parents. And finally, this girl was integrated in our first program, Sister School, and now she's continuing her studies. It is this kind of support that girls and boys and men are trying to help us in this great work that we're doing in Senegal, above all in the rural area. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Casimir. I think this is really very nice to hear. So this is encouraging, actually, to hear that, in some part of the world in Africa, there are some, efforts and some men who are actually becoming champions, trying to get out of the man box, as, we've been saying, trying to challenge those negative traditional, gender norms around masculinity. And I'm going just to go back to one thing that you mentioned, which is really, really very important. Now that we are in the African context, West African context, religion, faith is really very important. We know how much those faith leaders are really very powerful. We know how much they are influential in shifting those norms and attitudes. And you're really very happy to have Dominique with us today. So we'll be actually very happy to hear from you, Dominique, about your experience working with health leaders and on gender issues, but also we heard that you have been able to conduct a systematic information on both women and girls, but also on men and boys over different programs that you are implementing in West Africa. So please share with us about the key insights that you gained from this process. So please talk about this one, but also mostly we need to hear from your experience working with faith leaders and religious leaders. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shamsi, for this great opportunity. I'm happy to contribute here, and I'm calling from New York City. I'm actually attending in person the Commission of Status of Women. And I asked my question. I was in a panelist this morning, a high-level panelist. I was asking myself why I'm appearing as a Lone Ranger, a man working for women empowerment. So there's a history and an experience that I have, first as a man, and secondly as a faith leaders. I want to start by saying that in sub-Saharan Africa, faith actors are the custodians of culture and also traditions. They are actually the enablers of community transformation and therefore key in initiating meaningful change in the local community through transforming social gender norms for equity and gender justice. I also want to say that through my work engaging faith leaders, engaging men, and also engaging community leaders, we actually are trying to understand the root causes of sexual and gender-based violence. Why are women vulnerable? That's the big question that we need to ask. Why are women and girls are vulnerable? The first answer to this question is that we live in a patriarchal society, a society that men owns power. And this power, many times, we misuse it. And religion come in as a big pillar that supports patriarchy when religious texts and the Bible and all religious texts are misinterpreted to justify that patriarchal norm. This is the big problem that we have, and the big thing that is calling us to invite men in a dialogue to talk about this monopoly of power over women. Because many times this power is being misused and actually is used to oppress women and girls. I've been working mostly because we developed a training manual, which I'm using across sub-Saharan Africa. The other day we were in Kigali, Rwanda, with actually leaders from 6 African countries talking about the role of faith actors, the role of men in actually advancing equality and justice for men and women. This dialogue toolkit is giving us opportunity to analyze spaces through which actually we can engage men, to analyze why patriarchy insists and we cannot actually penetrate equality because we live and socialize in a patriarchal way. So the moment we understand the elephant in the room, the patriarchal values that normally many times bring injustices and violence against women, then we are going to start from there. My experience with men many times is that actually it's lack of information. So we need to involve men and give them information because many men do not understand. They think and they know because the way we are socialized that actually the power that we have, the influence we have is God's from a religious perspective. It's God's. But actually it's out of misinterpretation that we think that the power we have is God's. The power we have is purely patriarchy, and many times it harms. Not only for women, it also harms men. So in our groups, we normally talk about harmful masculinity. How can men be engaged to understand community roles, especially gender roles? How can men actually support their wives when they are going to hospital so that they can be collectively going to hospital as husband and wife? How can men understand education of girls as of importance, just as education for boys? How can men understand that when we talk about domestic roles, it is actually calling for both men and women to work together to bring food on the table? So these are some of the conversation that normally I have with men in the community. And when it comes to working with the religious leaders, we talk about the interpretation of sacred text. How do we use the sacred text to empower both men and women? And normally I tell my fellow priests and clergy that the Bible is not a stone to throw at people, but a bread of life to feed them. So when a faith leader takes the Bible and starts saying that the Bible talks about the power of man, he's the head, like in Christianity, we say that the man is the head of the family. How do we interpret the meaning of the head? Does the meaning of head say that I accumulate all power and use it to abuse my wife? Does the Bible say that when I'm the head of the family, I use this power to actually eject harmful, toxic masculinity to everyone? No. Being leadership in a Christian perspective is actually servanthood. When you are given as a leader in a family, you are a servant to serve. You make sure that actually everybody is safe. You make sure that everybody actually is accountable, is able to thrive, and also bring their gifting in the area that they are being called. So in a nutshell, this is what I've been doing mostly with the men, faith leaders, and community leaders to have conversation about how women we can be involved and to end gender-based violence, especially to identify patriarchy as the devil in the room. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dominique. Maybe a follow-up question. Can you please share with us some tangible examples from maybe from Benin or from Kenya on how those programs or this way of being intentional in engaging men and boys has led to tangible transformative changes within, relationships, household, communities, based on your experience? So we need to hear something really very tangible.
Thank you. Currently, we have 3 main programs, but I want, for the purpose of this Zoom, I will talk about our engagement on post-masculinity, men, faith actors, and also community leaders. Currently, we have 42 men's groups that we are currently working with, and they are working on positive masculinity. These men groups meet every month on what they call breakfast meetings. These breakfast meetings are like safe spaces through where actually men come and dialogue as men. They talk openly on the challenges about gender equality, on the challenges about what we are facing their family, and how they can actually become a force to end this. Number one, they have been talking about the land rights, especially in Kenyan context, because almost 80%, almost 85% of lands in Kenya are owned by men. It's a cultural issue that actually men own land. So when they meet in their breakfast meetings, they have conversation around land rights and how they can actually co-own the title deed, the land title deed for both men and women. We have seen success where actually many families are now including their wives in the registration of land in the name of their wives. Many times when the husband has died, you find that widows have great problem that actually their land and properties are being taken away by their in-laws, there are people coming that women cannot own land. So we are actually working on this loophole to make sure that women own land, co-own land with their husbands, and also they can own properties well. Another thing that also we have been working with these groups is to talk about femicide. What is the main cause of femicide? The killing of women by intimate partner relationship with their husbands and with their intimate friends. We find that actually it is about the power, the challenge. You know, women are going to school, they are getting employment, they are coming to spaces where initially were actually for men, especially in a family type of context. When I marry a woman of my caliber, we have the same education, she's earning and she's bringing, and again, I want to be the head of the family with controlling attitude that, where have you been? We want to control a woman in a box that actually you are the leader, you want to see everything. That normally brings confrontation. And many women, especially in the context of Kenya, are dying because their husband are saying that you cannot take away this power from me. It belongs to me. I have to control to know how you're moving. Another topic that we've been talking about is about cooking. Men suffer when they retire because they don't know how to cook. We have a group, a very special group that actually is every month they bring men to practice cooking, how they can cook ugali, how they can cook fish, and how they can work together with their wife to have cooking. Because in retirement, men suffer when that power is now going down and they cannot even cook. They are waiting for their wife to come from the market so that they can cook. Now men can cook because they can do it. Culturally, men are not allowed to cook in our culture, in most African culture, but we are telling them that they can do this together. Another thing that is going on, well, like I mentioned, is again co-parenting together, going to the hospital, husband and wife, and also being responsible for children all together. Many times women are blamed when children are not going on well because bringing up children has been left for women. We are asking their safe groups so that they can talk about all these things to have a positive masculinity that is bringing both men and women together to work as equal human beings. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dominique. This was really very interesting. And as what I can say, of course, when you're talking about those issues around gender equality, women's empowerment, masculinities, we say that it's all about power. How this power is being used, how this power is being shared over others, and so on and so forth. And I really like your curricula that you have developed, including those small activities to bring men on board and having hands-on on those, traditionally known as women's activities, like cooking, for instance. So we do have the same in the module that I've developed in West Africa for Sweden and even here in Rwanda, whereby when you're having those men on board, we start teaching them those small activities, changing diapers, playing with the kids, which traditionally is not really accepted in so many societies in Africa. A man who plays with his kids is not seen as a real man, actually. And yet this has, some positive and negative impact on his life and so on. But what goes with it, what I've seen, around my different projects around Africa is the challenge of bringing them on board. How do you convince men to come on board? Because sometimes, when they hear about those programs, they feel like, it doesn't concern them. It's for women. It's not for men. So this is where I'm going to go back to Wednesday and ask him about which kind of strategies, or what are the recommendations that have been used to be effective in integrating male engagement into women's empowerment initiatives based on the Batonga experience again? Again, you know, coming back to this question of how do you manage to bring men on board? How do you deal with the retention, dropout, and all that? Because we see around, you know, the continent that, you know, this is the biggest problem. Bringing men on board, and also those who come, how do you make sure you this retention, high retention rate? Thank you, Wensi. Over to you.
Thanks, Chamsi. But first, you also mentioned Benin and Senegal. The question related to the impact we are experiencing day to day. And I would say in our case, you know, because of the support of these male champions, since we integrated this approach to our programs, we are seeing day-to-day changes over our main programs, like the one related to the women economic empowerment, because of the support of the male champions, but also because of many other aspects within our approach. We noticed that the profit earned by women, other the businesses increased a lot. Even last December, within the approach, they put in place a system to work from January to December before sharing their profits in December. We noticed every year they are increasing the profits. Last December, they share among themselves about $130,000 in CFA. Our currency it's about 44 millions of CFA. It's a lot in within the remote area. The really isolated communities where we are implementing is really something. We also notice the second program, the AGL, Adolescent Girl Leadership Program, that the attendance also increased because of the fact that fathers, but also the caregivers are letting adolescent girls participating in the leadership clubs. And so on. We have many cases. You can learn more by visiting our website, our impact reports we are putting in place every quarter. Coming back to your question, your last question about how we can recommend strategies integrating this approach, I would say specifically, I will focus on the Francophone West Africa contest that we really master, and the implementation on girl-focused programs. And then I would say, first of all, you need to start with awareness and sensitization, clarifying the program's objective. That is essential because as far as integrating male allyship in the girl programming is concerned, community leaders with all you know about social norms, our context in West Africa, people are scared about what will happen. As I said, like you are going to cut power from men. You need to explain that. It's the first point to start with. To explain what we are going to do is for the benefit of the whole household, not only for women or only for girls. It's for everyone. That is the starting point to explain this incredible approach. And then after doing that, you need to put program participants and the women, local staff you have on the programs, like the mentors, but also program participants in the center, identifying the best male champions. Because one criteria to choose male champions at Batonga Foundation is that you need to be really engaged. Who master the one who are best placed in the community to be champions? There are women and girls. So at Batonga Foundation, we really have this in mind when it's come to select the male champions. A third point I will highlight is you need, after selecting the male champions, to equip them, to train them. This is really essential because promoting positive masculinity calls many aspects. And then you need to establish like men's discussion groups, engaging them in conversation on positive masculinity, but also to clarify the whole. What is expected from them is really important to know. And then you need about girl programming to develop a really strong and strict safeguarding policies to protect program participants. That is something really essential. I would say even at Batonga Foundation is like a first point when we are implementing girl programming, associating male. Our safeguarding policies are really in place. We are updating them every time to see if we are on the good track. After that, using data and stories to evaluate impact is something also interesting, important to know if you need to change something, to adapt something based on the context. At Batonga, we are always in process of co-creating things. You are not coming in the community with something really pre-established to say, okay, you're gonna do this. No, we are taking example on the context of each community. We even started by one program, and based on the needs of communities where we are implementing our approach, we developed the other one we have today, reaching like 4 big programs. And at the end, I will say we need also, if you are going to integrate this approach, to ensure long-term commitments and follow-up within communities. Is something essential. At least in the West African Francophone context, you need to make change, because changes take time to happen, especially in societies where you have deep-rooted gender norms. You need to establish ongoing refresh training with community engagement processes. Yeah, that is all you should know before integrating this approach in girl programming. Thank you, Chamsi.
Thanks a lot, Wes, for sharing this nice approach that we are using at Batonga. So I like to know the last part that you shared, talking about, first you talked about training, which is really very important. I think one of the other panelists talked about the fact that, I think it was Dominique, talking about the fact that there is also some kind of ignorance, not knowing. So really very important, to provide this knowledge so that people understand very well the issues. And also I like the fact of being consistently evaluating the program and knowing how the change is happening. And lastly, we talked about monitoring, and you said it really very well, especially in this field of shifting norms around masculinities, femininities, gender equality. It's not done once for all. People, when they're coming to those groups, you see them changing, but when they go back to the community, sometimes it happens that given these influencers, their peers, they again go back to the same negative norms or attitudes. So it's really very important to monitor and to adjust. And also like this strategy of co-creating with the participant and the communities. Really, I've seen also this, across other programs, that it's really very useful and very impactful. And maybe just to add, before I go back to you again and to Dominique as well about the identification of men, saying that what I've seen also in implementing those programs as key strategies when we are engaging men and boys, first of all, is to avoid or to make sure you are approaching men in a positive way. We talked about men given, the socialization, all tradition norms, and also the religious, beliefs that they hold a lot of power, a lot of privileges. So sometimes people tend to approach men accusing them, being the one perpetrating violence, being the one being bad. So we all know that actually it's not them, it's the societies that have raised them, the societies that have, educated them. So when you start approaching men in a negative way, we directly create a kind of a hole, a barrier, a resistance. So this is the first strategy, to make sure that actually you approach men positively. And also making sure that you explain to men what is the benefit? I'm sorry to say that for men, because when there is no benefit, when there's no gain, they don't see the interest. So it's really very important to show men that you're not bringing them on board for the sake of women and children. Showing them also when they are getting involved, they're becoming allies, they're becoming positive men. They also gain from this process. We talked about, how men have been raised and all the burden they have because they're the one, expected to be providers, protectors, they're everything in the community. But at the moment they understand that actually this power can be shared with their female partners, they can be working together with their female partners, it actually, reduces a little bit of the burden they hold as men, given the way, they're being defined as well, what it means to be a man. So those are the things that are really very important, to tell men when we are trying to bring them on board, to promote positive masculinities, but also gender equality and women's empowerment. So related to this, again, I'll go back to you once, and maybe starting by Dominique and asking you about how strategically you manage to identify those champions, as you call them, or those men whom you bring in the programs. And, if there is any challenges, again, when you want to bring those men on board so that they can play, they can be positive players or enablers of promoting positive masculinities and also promoting gender equality. Maybe starting by you, Casimir, and then you can jump in Wednesday and add. And eventually, if you have anything to add on this as well, please feel free, Dominique, Casimir, because I know you all have those programs and you have some experiences in what you face in terms of challenges in identifying men and keeping them in the programs. So maybe starting by Dominique, then Casimir, and then Wednesday.
Okay. Okay, thank you. The key thing for me that has worked well for me is actually creating awareness with gatekeepers. Like I'm a priest, and being that I'm a priest gives me a privilege to reach out to my fellow priests, of which, again, in the sub-Saharan Africa, most priests are men. So it gives me opportunity to create awareness and talk about the values, the benefit that actually gender equality is going to benefit the church and the wider society. In this perspective, I bring the good news of Christ that actually is transforming, and equating it with the equality for men and women is also transforming. When both men and women are working together in harmony and also in love, communities thrive. Communities that actually sit on women, that burden women, they don't thrive. Communities that does not give women opportunity to go to school, they don't thrive. So many times when I approach my fellow priests and faith actors, I give them the benefit that actually is going to bring to the church. Going to the community, again, working with the men in the community, seeing me as a male champion and somebody who is talking about gender equality is a positive again, bring positive to my work, because they want to listen to a man. Because in Kenya and in many countries that I've been working in, even you talk about gender equality, it's a men's issue. Even when you talk about gender equality in a church, women are remaining, men are going because gender equality are women's issue. No, gender equality is not women's issue. It's a human rights issue affecting both of us. Patriarchy harm men in 3 dimensions. Number one, giving men power to be giving the men power to actually be the head, being head, or to provide, to protect, and to be property owners. Those 3 things are actually hurting men. When you cannot be measured to that level, you are seen as a failure, of which many times men give up. So sensitizing men and actually showing them the benefit of gender equality is very beneficial, and actually many times help me to keep men in my programs. Again, when these men are becoming gender champions, like we have one vibrant men's group in Kenya, where actually are also working on smart agriculture. We are also empowering these men again, beside positive masculinity, what they can do on smart agriculture and climate change, and so that they can bring more food on the table. So this has been working to me, more particularly the reason why I'm passionate about men, to engage men, because men will listen to men more than they listen to women on issues of gender equality. Thank you.
Definitely, I agree. And I think this maybe can be added in the strategies of engaging men and working with men, men listen more to their fellow men more than to women, if I can say so. So I think this is another strategy. So to you, Casimir, if you can share about, any issues, challenges on identifying and bringing men on board in your programs.
Yeah, thank you. I think the main challenge we have in our program to identify them is the great power of patriarchy, as I have just said, and the ignorance of the majority of some men in the rural area where we are. And that's why we think that they need to be trained on gender equality. That's why in our program, we have our male champions, we have boys and men. And then it is in 2021 that we integrated boys. And we have one criteria that the boy to be part in the program, you have to be committed to working together with their peer sisters at school. And it is the professors themselves, the teachers of the teachers, because we are working with some teachers in the program, what we call a selective committee. It is the teachers who selected the boys for us, and then using this criteria. But for the men, we engage progressive religious leaders, and we are working with around 50 men in all around the village in our area of interventions, and they are religious leaders and or head of villages. So we train them also in the committee. We train them on gender equality, and then after the training, you can notice that really these people, they need to be trained. For the boys, sometimes their peers, they dishearten them, telling them that you don't need to integrate this female program. If you do it, it's like you are not a man, you are not a boy, you are not strong, you are not a strong boy. Those things are the things who are challenging really our work in the program. But nevertheless, the engagement of these boys and the work are really strong, because for men, for the religious leaders, sometimes today they started talking about in their sermons, they started talking about to the right of girls, of women in their sermons. And I think this is a great thing. And we have also a lot of success stories about the work with the champions. For instance, we have 70 champions in our leadership program in the high school where I am in Sokon. They are really, really committed. And what was striking is when they started raising an awareness campaign of the use of sanitary towel, because they have noticed that a lot of girls, they were just throwing everywhere the sanitary towels after the use. But it's the boys that starting this sensitization, going to a class to another and sensitizing their peer sisters, because they said that they know that those girls, they did not, they were not trained on this personal hygiene workshop because they were not part of it. And the boys, they take the floor, they go to a class to another to sensitize those girls. I think this was really amazing. And those same boys, they conducted radio programs in the community radios. And one story that also that I wanted to share is that one of their classmates was in danger to getting married by her mother. But the boys, they take the floor, they go to the radio program, and they denounce this. And eventually, the father, he decided to just stop this marriage. And today, this girl is continuing her studies. She is at university. I think this is the great thing that the boys are performing in our community. And one thing I want to say is that before the existence of this alert committee, where boys and women and where boys and men are really engaged, a girl could be raped and then people can just felt sorry for the survivor girl or to their family, but nothing was done. But with this committee today, the men are ready. Always, boys and men are ready, fully engaged to take the floor, to denounce the situation. It is like the image of a shepherd protecting the lambs against the wolves. And then that is really really inspiring what the men and the boys here in the rural area are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Casimir. Inspiring indeed. Maybe before we move forward, just reminding our participants to please write your questions in the chat box, and the panelists will be shortly answering your questions. So, of course, you talked about trainings, Casimir, and I think you're all doing trainings, but I think all what you are sharing is coming back to the biggest challenge or the biggest root causes, this being actually rooted in our African traditional norms that are sometimes harmful, gender inequitable, which I want just to say that actually it's really very important to take a gender transformative approach. Those programs, those trainings, making sure that actually we are trying to address the root causes around masculinities and femininities. So as we are going to talk again Wednesday, and again, I will ask the other panelists to jump in at any time. I want to hear about, because I've heard that you have been successful in bringing men on board, but I'm just wondering about the retention part of it. They come, how long do they stay in the programs? So this is one. But secondly, we talked about the influencers. We've been talking about traditional leaders. We've been talking about religious leaders. So it's good to work with those individual boys and men and transform their negative masculinities, having them on board. But I think it's also very important to work on those other levels in the ecosystem. I've seen this in the Swede, actually, having those group of men coming together for a number of weeks, a number of months. You see them changing, becoming champions, understanding, getting involved, supporting women's initiatives. But then sometimes when they go back to the families, to the communities, there is this kind of backlash. So I'm now wondering about the backlash. Working on it with individuals, but what do you try to do on all those other levels in the communities? Of course, Dominique shared with us about the work with the faith leaders, but I will need to hear from your experience about, this ecosystem kind of, doing your activities, but also the retention of men who are already in the program and how you make sure they stay for much longer. Thank you.
Yeah, you are right. At Batonga Foundation, as I mentioned, we really select intentionally the male champions so that when you are male champion one day, you will be a male champion forever. It's not something you can be part of for a time, but it's your life. That recall me your last question about challenges. Yeah, in the communities where we are implementing our programs, one key aspect is the peer pressure on the male champion about what people will say, what they are saying about my job or my behavior, my new behavior, because when the male champions are equipped, trained, they change within the communities, and people are always asking what is going on, why are you doing this or this, as Dominic said. Now you are cooking, you are supporting your wife, going to the market to sell products. Yeah, so things change and they are having these pressures. That is why you need to let them know before they jump into this role fully, that they will be hearing this or this or this is something important they should know before starting this journey, that make them to feel really comfortable to stay longer, to be forever male champions. And there are the little things, some things you can do every day, but this also is part of our own life. You need to show example, like myself. Everybody knows at Batonga, but also around me, that I'm a he for she. Even at home, at work, you need to be different. When you are part of something, people should know that you are different. You are not perpetuating what we are seeing according to the norms, the social norms, the stereotypes. You need to be different. That is what we are telling the champions every day, that you are not be two people, someone in the day, someone different in the night. No, you should be a perfect person every time as great champions. This is something really important. At community level, we also have this kind of framework we have in place that we call community engagement. This is really frequently we are implementing this approach to give update to the community members what we are doing, but also most importantly, we are showing impact to tell them, you can see that this change, this is because of this, to let them know the changes male champions are creating, the importance to integrate this approach is for the whole, the benefit of the whole community, not for only women and girls, as I said. That is the way Batonga is proceeding to stay, to have male champions longer, and for forever with this behavior. Yeah, Jamsi.
Thanks, Wense. If anything else to add from our other panelists, Dominique and Casimir, about the retention and also the interventions at other levels beyond the individual level, to make sure that actually the environment where those men are living is, enabling, is conducive, and there's no this kind of backlash, and they continue practicing what they are learning or that they are hearing in those groups. Anything to add, Casimir?
Yes, of course. In our program, of course, we don't have maybe a great strategy, but the main strategy we have is that every year we organize a training for them. We keep them, training them, asking them on which topic related to gender equality, or related to the laws, related to yourself. Okay, we use a lot of topics like communication. How do they can, because they are since we ask them to go and organize causerie and community meetings. Some of them, they say, yes, we need skills on communication. So every year, Women's Global is trying to keep those men, because for the boys, it's a bit difficult, because after we just work with them for 2 years, and then after they graduated, they in high school, they have to go to university. But now we are intending to create a program at university, so that we can follow and sustainable all the work that our boys was doing in high school. It is the strategy that we are thinking about for the boys in the coming years.
Thank you, Casimir. I think to be able to give some time to our participants also to participate actually and to share with us their insight and questions. Maybe very quickly, I'll give you each 1 minute to tell us, looking ahead now, what do you think are your next steps or future goals to further integrating men engagement in your organization's women's empowerment strategies? Just 1 minute each, and then we'll give the floor to the participant. Let's start by Dominique, and then Casimir, and lastly, Wansi.
Thank you, my dear sister, for this opportunity. One thing that I can say, our organization, Institute for Faith and Gender Empowerment, has developed a dialogue toolkit on positive masculinity that make us engage men and also engage faith actors. If any opportunity is given, we are able to come to Senegal to meet with men and faith actors, so that we can actually take them through a 3 days training that actually will make them become gender champions, and also make them understand the need for men to be engaged on gender justice issues. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dominique. Casimir?
Yeah, for for Women's Global Education Project, our next goal is integrating more boys and men to our committees and to expand more committees above all in the islands, because we are our first program is being implemented in the islands, because in the department where we are, we have a lot of islands, and then we really intended to expand the leadership program in this island. Of course, we also want to extend our leadership program all over the region where we're working. But of course, if the funds are available, because Women's Global, generally we are a bit suffering from the cutting fund from USAID. So then you can understand the situation. So we are also intending to partnering with other organizations here in Senegal. Thank you very much for Batonga and to reaching out for us for this panel.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Casimir. I think what I'm hearing here from Casimir is the scale up needs. And again, relate to what you say, once the scale up is needed, yes, but also impact evaluation is important to be able to scale up those programs. And I heard from our priest, Dominique, partnership is also important. 1 minute, one thing, and then we give the floor to our participants.
Yeah, at Batonga Foundation, we are really willing to have this approach as automatic and normal everywhere. And for that, we are reinforcing the use of radio programs, a really great pillar we also have at Batonga Foundation, to more engage men and boys, so that this the positive masculinity becomes something normal everywhere. With strong safeguarding policies. This is important because we want this allyship model to become a solution, not a problem. This is something really important we are always mentioning at Batonga Foundation, and of course that is how we'll be proceeding in the short future at Batonga.
Thanks, Wense. So let's start with the few questions that we are having in the chat box, and then if we still have time, we'll give the floor to some other participants, maybe to say something or share their insight. So the first question says, comment sont appréciés ces hommes champions par d'autres membres de la communauté? Actually, this is from Marie Musukyo Amisi, and it goes to everyone. There's no precision, actually. So anyone from the panelists?
Yeah.
Can share with us?
Of course.
Yes, maybe I will start, and Casimir, you will
Okay.
follow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for our experience from the beginning, is something strange for some community members, but when you are equipping them, showing them the way they can use to more engage the peers, the other community members, that becomes progressively something normal. But from the beginning, is something really critical for someone saying, oh, for centuries we are behaving like this. From where you bring this approach, but you need to show them the benefit of that. That is something we are experiencing. We are developing tool for that at Batonga Foundation.
Yes, as for me, at the beginning, it was not easy, because the boys, they were disheartened by their peers, discouraging them not to integrate this program, saying them that this is for women, this is for girls. Okay, but for the men, we were lucky when the religious leaders started talking about the issues of women, talking about in their sermons, and congratulating all those men who are helping the women's education in the community. That was really lucky for us. Yeah. And then seemingly I have seen other question talking about how personally I practice this masculinity in my work. Of course, as I told you, since I ended my study, I always work for women organization. The first one is Women's Global Education Project. And today, I really supported my colleagues, my young colleagues. I'm really supporting them. And I was lucky also that my assistant, my own assistant, she gained the reward on thanks to the work that I'm gender award this year from a great organization, thanks to the support that I was doing to her. I remember that the day I presented her the application, she said, no, I want to be able to make it. I say, of course, we're gonna apply, I'm gonna help you, I'm gonna support you, and you're gonna make it. And then she really made it. She won that prize. And that it was a great impact for what we're doing in as far as masculinity is concerned. Yeah.
Yeah,
And thanks to that also, I'm sorry, but thanks to that, in a departmental level, the governor, he appointed Women's Global Education Project in my person as a focal point of the struggle against violence against women and boys. It is thanks to this alert committee that Women's Global has created in the Department of Funju. We have 8 committee that we raise in the Department of Funju, in the place where we work. Thank you.
Thanks, Casimir. Maybe the next question we can ask Dominique. Someone is asking to share some tangible success stories, maybe from the perspective of religious leaders and faith leaders. Any tangible success story you can share with us?
Thank you so much. Myself, I'm a successful story. Because
Wow.
the way I was brought up, growing up as a young boy, I was brought up in a polygamous family. My father had 3 wives. And seeing how my mother being treated, being beaten by my father almost, and I didn't like that. That was actually the trigger for it. So later on in my seminary, when I came across academic journal, I found the motivation that my daughters, my children, will no longer suffer the way my mom suffered. And when I think about the tears when my mom used to cry almost every evening, we are waiting for daddy to bring food home because he's the provider. When he comes home, he's so bitter, and actually he's starting with my mom. So that's a success story, because as a faith leader, I'm using that platform to make that be a positive thing for everybody, to know that actually empowerment of women will support, because my mom could not even go to work. She was not educated well as my father, so she was just there as a housewife. Again, in the communities that we work, we have very many successful stories. Like now, we are actually partnering with the government in public schools and also in hospitals. We are trying to link the hospitals and also churches, so that actually we can have medical practitioners, faith practitioners coming together to talk about sexual and reproductive health. What are the social norms from the pulpit that actually is making young people not to access family planning and reproductive health services, because they fear they are being condemned in the church, they are immoral. So we are bringing them together for dialogue. These are the conversations going on that actually is breaking barrier for young people to access SRH, talk about teenage pregnancy, and also HIV and AIDS. Again, we have men's group that actually are working on themselves. We have men's group in the church that actually, when we have done training, they have caught the fire, the church will be there forever. We don't need to support them with funds. The moment we have done training, we work with them for 2 years, the program is rolling out themselves because men are aware. And we have gender champions that normally we bring for some training to equip them more, so that when they go back, they actually affect the whole society. So there's so many examples that I can make that actually I've seen. Even in Uganda, the men that I've mentored, there's a man that actually is now running a non-profit organization, and it's a big school, and he attended the conference that we had in Kampala, Uganda the other year. So we have so many examples that we can locate. By myself, I'm a good example that faith leaders can do it, that actually men can do it. We can actually make a society where women and men thrive together. We live in peace and also in harmony. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Reverend, for sharing your personal stories. So we have another question from Ami Maglio regarding effectiveness. Ami, if you can unmute yourself and raise your question and say to whom you are addressing it, please, Ami. Ami Maglio. Can you unmute yourself and talk?
Yes, hello, thank you.
All right.
This is just for the whole panel. I wanted to know, in your experience, how
Oh,
We lost you, Ami. Are you
you are
there?
muted again.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, clearly.
I wanted to know, anyone on the panel, how can you show the effectiveness of these programs? Do you find, I know the stories that you tell are very impactful and inspiring, and I can see the change that in the importance of these programs. How do you measure, the impact of changing minds and attitudes among men? Have you successfully gained any funds for these programs, and how have you been able to articulate the impact to funders?
Who want to go first?
Yes, let me go first.
Sure. Go ahead, Reverend.
Thank you. Let me start by saying that changing mindset and attitude is a long-time process. Engaging men to understand gender equality, because the way we are socialized, take time. So in our case, many times when we have trainings, we have what we call pre-training survey, which actually everybody feel and we know their position, we know their attitude before we do training. And maybe after training again, we have another survey that actually again we take. Now we give that, now they have information. What are they doing? So these people, again, we work with them, these leaders, we call them community gender champions for the next 2 years. Again, at the end, we do assessment in the, especially working with faith leaders, how they are someone also have words that actually empower. And also from this camp, from the congregation, they say, oh, our pastor can talk about women empowerment, can talk about gender equality, can talk about things that actually affecting women and girls in the society. So from there also, we have a tool that helps us to know that there's something changed. Again, when we go to hostels, especially in Sia County in Kenya, we go to the hostel and find the number of teenage girls, the number of teenagers that actually are going to hostel to access SRS services. So also it tells us that actually there's something going on, and also the decreasing number of HIV and AIDS and also gender-based violence in local community from chiefs and also from gatekeepers. That helps a lot to know that actually there's impact going on.
Yeah. Thank you, Kazi. Thank you, Dominic. Maybe to add before you take the floor, Wense, to share also from Ekimundo's experience to the question about measuring or assessing the effectiveness. We do also have tools that Ekimundo have developed. So one is called the GEM, the Gender Equitable Men Survey. It's a tool actually that helps to measure the shifts in attitudes for men, being adult and young men. But also to the question about effectiveness and measuring, we also have tools that measure the effectiveness of the program. So we can do both, measuring the shift in attitude, but also the impact of the program itself in terms of the process, but also the impact evaluation. So just to say that we do have tools, and I'm sure that other organizations also have tools. And those tools, after doing the impact evaluation, after having the report, actually what comes out from the impact evaluation, I would say that is the tool or the way that helps also to fundraise money to continue implementing the program. So over to you, Wense.
Yeah, I would say the specificity of Batonga Foundation is that the men and boys engagement is not a program, but is an initiative directly linked to the programs. So we are measuring every day, every week, the impact. Like for the program Adolescent Girl Leadership, we can see when we have attendance issue, we know we need to do something with the men and boys engagement or community engagement. When with the women economic empowerment program, the profit the program participants are earned, but also the support they are getting from their husbands, really let's say indicators for that. And we are making assessments, as I said, quarterly impact report to see changes, but also impact we are making. That is what I would say about Batonga, but also the qualitative data collected. Even for this panel, we collected some last impact from the field. I have many testimonies directly from what we are experiencing every day, is how Batonga is measuring impact.
Yeah, thank you. So in addition to what Shamsi said, and you, Musolo and Dominic, and describing, because Shamsi, you have described the process. We have having all the tools to fundraise. Of course, in Women's Global also we have a new system that we are trying to start having new tools so that we can collect all this data related to positive masculinity. But to gain funds, I mean, I'm going to just make a proposal or suggest suggestion, just to work as a consortium with Batonga, with the organization of Dominic and the other organization, Ekimondo, I don't know, to go together and try to collect all our data together, and why not to apply together as a consortium. I think this is a great way to gain funds and to develop all our programs. And then I keep on thanking also Batonga for this, for reaching out to us. And I think this is also the result of OC, because I know I meet you at OC, I meet Batonga at OC, and I facilitated with Dominic a session at OC in Mexico. And I think we have to continue all this, trying to be as a consortium to gain funds. Thank you.
Agreed, Casimir. So continuing to strengthen collaboration and avoiding working in silos. I fully agree. So let's take this question, and maybe it's going to be the last. The question from Pauline, VISSOH. Pauline, can you unmute yourself and talk?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Pauline Visso from Benin. Thank you all to, my thanks to the teams. You are doing a good job. Like I was saying in my presentation, we are confronted in Africa with terrorism and organized crime. And those two phenomena are jeopardizing humanitarian program in Africa. So to all of the panelists, I would like to know the way you think terrorism and organized crime can affect your programs, and what is your plan in case it happens. Thank you very much.
Who would like to take on this question?
Yeah, I think this is part of our reality now. Even in Benin, in the north of Benin, yeah, we are not far. Our programs currently are not far from this issue in the department of Atakura. Yeah, so it's a really concern for everyone at Batonga. We put focus on the local people, local mentors, but also the local men and boys to support our programs. So even we are facing this issue, the one who asked the question, Paulin, you may know that for the local, there are living normally in their community. So if you won't come from abroad, from outside, there are normal living in the community. So we at Batonga, we are still working in this region, while maybe for other organizations they left. But Batonga, our focus is to go where it's difficult for other one to go, and we are finding all ways to continue our mission. So it's something every organization is facing. Yeah, maybe if you also have a proposition, or like, let's say, the way to proceed, you can suggest it after this session. We'll be open to hear from you.
Yes. If you're right, Vance. It is a very critical question, terrorism. But I think we have to continue working with progressist religious leaders, and then I think this might be a solution to come up with that, to prevent, I would say, okay, continuing integrating them so that they can understand what we are doing. Because if somebody tackle you or attack you, it's because sometimes he did not understand what is your work is. That's why I think we should continue talking, integrating them, training them also, insisting about training those religious leaders in gender equity, what gender equity is, because it is really important. Sometimes I remember one day during our training, one religious leaders, he asked us the question, is it what you're trying to bring us? Is it to change the mind of our sons, to try to change the religion of our son, to change the religion, to the Muslim religion, for the Christian religion, or what? I said, no, it's not our aim, it's not our purpose. Leadership is not about religion. Leadership is about changing the mind of your sons, trying to support them so that they can have great relationship with their classmate and so on and so forth. That's why it's really important to continue integrating and training those religious leaders to come up against terrorism. Thank you.
Thank you, Casimir. So allow me, I think time is not on our side. We just have 4 minutes left. So allow me to really thank you very much, all our amazing panelists, all the participants. I know there are some questions that I will not answer, but I'm sure that I believe Batonga will be following up with you all to make sure they answer your questions. So I'm going to take this time then to invite again the ED Kodu of Batonga for her closing remarks. Thanks again, and over to you, Kodu.
Thank you so very much, Shamsi. Thank you, Casimir. Thank you, Reverend Dominic. And thank you, Wens. Thank you to everyone who has stuck with us for the hour and a half to this very, very important issue when it comes to gender equality, when it comes to women's empowerment. I think what you've shared, each in your domain, in your area, gives us a lot of room for thought, but also a room for food for thought, but food for action. We know that a lot is being done that is very positive, but also we need to do more. And how do we do more? I think some ideas have emerged as far as collaborative, impact, gathering and consolidating the impact from individual organizations and showing that it actually makes a difference when each of us waters our plant in front of our own garden, really. And to be able to go together and maybe show that these results need to be amplified even more by collaborating to seek funding. Because without funding, we cannot do a whole lot, further. We cannot scale up. So we've talked also about how to ensure that we don't lose, the sustainability of it all. Sustainability comes also with making sure that these things are authentic and anchored, as Wen said, a champion for one day, a champion forever. That these are not programs; they actually be infused in the way we live. They infused in the way we do things. That they make a difference, that communities see, that they can integrate and say, this is actually positive and good for us. If women earn a living and if girls can study further, it is good for our village, it is good for our community, it's good for our household. So again, we're not necessarily doing just male engagement for the sake of male engagement. We're doing it so that we're able to advance and improve our societies for everyone. for men and for women, for boys and for girls. So these, I think, emerged out of the conversation. And I think we need to leave this conversation saying to ourselves, what are we going to do individually? Each and every one of us, besides the organizations that we work with, how do we make sure that when we leave this room, we actually start acting on making sure that positive masculinity is known and it is lived and it is experienced on a daily basis? I think that's where the difference in the sustainability will come from. Working with religious leaders, working with male leaders in communities that are patriarchal, working with the boys, we start early. We can all do our part in our little piece of land, in our little, village, neighborhood. And I think collectively, it will come to make a big change, a lasting change. I'll leave, these are my last words. I'll give you the floor back, Shamsi. But thank you very much to everybody who has participated in this. And we look forward to continue the conversation tomorrow. We have another panel, and I think our colleagues will share with everybody who was on this panel today. Safe return back to your homes for those who are at CSW, and really good night, good evening for everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you very much, Kodu. I think nothing much to add after your, very nice words. So again, just thanking everyone, the panelists, the participants, and yes, Aluta continue as you said.
Yeah.
Thank you very much and take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.